What about your mate Jim Chalmers today? Apparently the way to fight inflation is to pump billions and billions of dollars into more green energy projects because eventually it becomes cheaper. What exactly is the logic here? Tell me what the talking point is. Throw some glitter on this one, because it makes zero to me. Zero to me.
Well, I think Jim is acknowledging it's going to be tough to meet our 2030 target and our 2050 target, and that the government needs to step in ways that it hasn't so far to try and keep the momentum going. Now, we've got, we've had the climate wars debate for 15 years. I repeatedly say I think the argument's been lost by the people who've opposed it. We want renewables. What we've got to do, though, and I've made this argument when I was in Parliament and I make it now, is we've got to manage this transition. And that's where, whoever's in charge, the Libs didn't want to change, so there was no transition to manage, but Labor wants to see, so gas is a big part of this. The Greens, of course, gas is evil, but Labor is increasingly acknowledging that. I think Chris Minns has said he's got to keep, one of the coal-fired power stations open. We're saying that gas has to be part of
that. But that's also why Dutton's now saying nuclear, right? Like he's moving into this new place, isn't he?
Beyond the nuclear stuff. I mean, it's
there's just nothing working. I've listened to the nuke debate for 15, 20, 30 years. There's still no of the small direct bury nuclear powers they're promising us that are going to be built before 2030 in the US. They're not going to get here any faster. And by then, the renewables will be much more heavily entrenched.
They might be entrenched, but it doesn't mean they're going to be more reliable. I mean, the problem with renewables is that they're not spinning a turbine that puts AC current into the grid. If you even just changed the signal to the market and said you can have nuclear, that would make, I think, a difference. But even taking that off the table, nothing we do, I'm sorry, even if you're a big believer in climate, nothing we do here is going to make a difference. China's coming off the boil on this. Other countries are coming off the boil. We are going to come off the boil on this too, because it's going to be too expensive and it's not going to work. I'm sorry.
Putting my head back in another lion's mouth now. I'm just feeling a bit warm on my neck here, right? The reason that I think the net zero conversation is more complicated than I want it to be. Like, I want us to be in a scenario we are 1% of the world's thing. China's the real problem. That's the thing. But are we going to get to a stage where the Americans say, unless you have a net zero target, here's the extra price on your goods? Would the EU ever turn around and do that? Because that's what they threaten.
EU absolutely
that's what I'm saying.
No, EU absolutely could. I don't know the US Congress. Biden might pass a reg. I don't know the Congress would back that up.
Yeah, right.
But EU absolutely could put a carbon tariff on.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's what I want.
But that's straight protectionism. And the thing is, too, is that the EU, you look at things like, well, look what happened to Siemens this week. Their offshore wind projects, they pulled the plug on because they can't make them economical. We are going to wind up in the same place as Europe on all of these things. We just need to decide whether we're going to do it next year or we're going to do it in 10 years after we've invested billions of dollars and had a million brownouts and a million other economic dislocations. I'm sorry, that's just the physics and the economics of this.
The feeling I had about this conversation, a couple of things lacking. Smokes, whiskey, that would have been about it. Otherwise, it's all good.
Hot chocolate for me.
Yeah, it's a chocolate for you. Okay, all right, fair enough. And lots of football talk. Thank you very much. Do appreciate it, lads. All the best to the Matildas, by the way. 3-0 last night over Chinese Taipei, otherwise known as Taiwan, the country that should be known by that name.